need a,
Thank you.
I need someone to motion to accept the minutes as they were posted for January 22nd, 2025.
Motion to.
Motion? And second? Second. Okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Do we have any nays? Okay. All right. Then we have the minutes for the workshop in February. What was the date of that again?
February 12th, 2025. Minutes.
Okay. Planning Commission minutes for February 12th, 2025. That's where we heard from CWS and the firefighters. Do I have any additions or corrections? No? Do I have a motion to accept them as written?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second? And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. 5-0. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have scheduled one legislative land use hearing related to land use case number LU 2025-04. The applicant, Pacific Community Design, is requesting the City of King City consider a Community Development Code amendment to Section 16.114.060.D6A.
Correction, Vice Chair, D6A.
D6A, okay. Amendment to Section 16.114.060.C6A. The hearing format for this proceeding is different than quasi-judicial land use proceedings. So members of the public provide testimony in the same manner. Members of the public may participate in person, in writing, or both. We ask that a copy of all written materials be submitted to our city clerk so that they can be made part of the record of the proceedings. The grounds for an appeal of a legislative decision are contained in ORS Chapter 197, specifically ORS 197.620. If you wish to speak for, against, or comment in any way, you have materials for the city recorder, needs a copy of them. For in-person testimonials, please write your name and all other required fields. For testimonials via Zoom, please write your name and indicate whether you are in support, in opposition, or neutral in the comments section. Names will be assigned a number in order in which we receive comments in the. When I call your number, please identify yourself and make your statement. The maximum time allotted for a testimony shall be 3 minutes for individuals, 10 minutes for applicants and persons representing 4 or more persons, and 10 minutes for applicants refiled. If your testimony would be repetitious, but you would like the opportunity to appeal the decision, you must sign the hearing sign-in sheet located at the rear of the council chambers, or type your name in the chat box and let staff know, and they will type your name in the chat box. Only those who have appeared before the City Planning Commission in person, Zoom, or in writing will be allowed to speak on appeal of this item to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Please be advised that all participants in person and via Zoom are expected to conduct themselves respectfully and professionally. Interruptions of public meetings containing inappropriate comments, hate speech, sexually explicit content, foul language, or any language suggesting bodily harm to others will not be tolerated. If any participant engages in such conduct, the chair or vice chair reserves the right to immediately mute and remove the offending individual from the meeting. This action aligns with our commitment to maintaining a safe and respectful environment for all participants. By joining this meeting, you acknowledge and agree to adhere to these guidelines. Public hearing. I call to order the public hearing regarding land use case LU 2025-04 at 07 p.m. Oh, no, wait. There we go. Okay. This is legislative hearing, so we do not follow the strict ex parte disclosure requirements. Good? Okay. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter? Okay, I see none. Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to disclose any actual or potential conflict of interest? Good, okay. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any individual member of the Planning Commission? Okay, I hear none. For all those wishing to testify, please be aware that if you fail to raise an issue in person, Zoom, or by letter today or to the City Council, you will be unable to raise that issue at a subsequent time on appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the criteria that staff will describe or other criteria in the plan or land use code which you believe apply to the decision. Failure to specifically address the approval criteria that staff will describe also precludes the raising of an issue related to those criteria on appeal. At this time, I call for the staff to present the proposal along with applicable approval standards and make a recommendation.
Chair, so as you mentioned, request from the applicant is a minor code amendment to Chapter 16, 114060, B6A, which is the chapter for design purpose, applicability, and standards. It's essentially the chapter that creates the framework for how houses are supposed to look in Kingston Terrace, with extra design features, porch length, stuff like that. The request itself, as I mentioned, is relatively minor. If you look at the first page on the staff report, it's outlined in red, and it states that what this specifically does is it requires the construction of transitional space in the entryway of homes. So if you are walking up a porch, you either have to have a horizontal transition of a 6-foot long porch leading to the door that's level, or a vertical transition of 3 feet, which is how the code is written now. You have to go up a number of steps that equate 3 feet minimum. The request is to reduce that 3 feet minimum to 18 inches. And the reasons given by the applicant were some topographic constraints that they are encountering town center currently. And so I'll leave it to the applicant to kind of explain their proposition and give you more reasons as to why they are requesting this change. But there's not really a code section that dictates code amendment requirements. So we look at more or less like the master plan and the comp plan. In this case, I looked at the Kingston Terrace master plan and just essentially evaluated on, does it change the character of the neighborhoods in Kingston Terrace? Does it change anything like with the density? And I found that no, it does not. In fact, one might argue that it makes the case of creating more variability within neighborhoods, which is the purpose of the Kingston Terrace master plan. So based upon that evaluation, I find that I recommend approval of this code amendment to the Planning Commission to recommend their approval to the City Council. Anyone have any questions for me?
What is the number of feet in front of a home for the first floor?
Well, it depends pretty greatly. Examples given by the applicant show in there are parts of Edgewater where you I think like Montague is a good example where you might have a house that's fabulous. Trying to keep track of this.
Okay.
But you might have a house that's got 8 feet of vertical transition, and they're high up, and they were built on a hill. And then immediately across the street there is or
wondering what the,
I don't think that there is.
front yard setbacks.
The setback is 10 feet generally
Okay.
from front yard.
Front yard setback to porch. R24 is 15 SF, that's single family.
Keep in mind that this only changes the Kingston Terrace district code, so this
Okay.
does not apply to SF, or any of the zones within.
Oh, okay, all right,
Kingston Terrace.
okay. But, so we don't have a minimum setback?
Oh, we
And-
do, I don't know about this.
Okay.
It changes depending on the neighborhood. But I don't believe that this would really impact the setback so much.
Okay. All right, well, okay,
I just have a question here. Are you done?
yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I didn't want to step that way.
All right,
I was curious, Max, do we have any way of knowing what the reason was for the 3-foot number in the first place?
And that was a question that was brought to me before the meeting, and the answer is I do not necessarily know why. It would have to be a question posed to our consultant and sort of Mike and Keith Light in the previous planner, what they were going for. Mike cited some safety issue as far as maybe potentially wanting to raise the first level to a point where if a car careens off the street, it's not,
Okay.
if it's higher up than 3 feet. That was what he, I don't have that, not sure.
Okay.
Position.
And the other question would be, is there any future downside to making this change?
Not that I can see. Yeah, I mean, I can't foresee any kind of unforeseen consequence. Like with home building or neighborhood character or anything like that. Like we hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the diagrams, that the 18-inch option appeared to be still a substantial amount
Right.
before the entry, so.
I mean, it might be a situation where it might be more expensive to have higher grade off the ground, so you might see less houses. How they can go all the way down. Potentially be less than good feet compared.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a question. Should we consider doing a variance rather than revising the CDC that affects the entire Kingston Terrace master plan until we know the reason for the original 36-inch requirement? Unless we know that, we're changing the entire code for the entire development rather than just doing a variance for this application.
I believe the reason for the request for the code change is that the applicant anticipates this being an issue throughout multiple developments that they're currently working on, including Charlotte Woods. And it's something that you could ask them if that's an approach they want to take, but I think that just moving forward in general, they see this as an ongoing issue, in which case you would have to apply for a variance every single time. But I understand where you're coming from. I can find that out.
yeah. Do you have anything more to ask Max? Or, okay, applicants, it's your time to present your proposal, please.
Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. I do have a presentation to share with you, and I hope this answers some of your questions. So just for the record, my name is Maureen Jackson, and I'm an Associate Project Manager with PCD. My address is 12564 Southwest Main Street in Tigard. And tonight I'm here representing New Home Company Development Code. And again, we have a short presentation to better illustrate what we're asking for. So again, as Max explained, we are requesting an amendment to the Kingston Terrace District Code, the transitional. The development in the district does require a minimum level of. And while the design standards promote attention to detail, design, street visibility, and privacy of adjacent property, they're also intended to allow flexibility in a variety of architecture. So an element of the design standards is the transition space, which is identified as the area of transition which is off.
Okay. The transitional space design standard may be met either vertically or horizontally. So compliance with the horizontal transition does require a 6-foot deep covered porch. In homes that do not include a deep covered porch are required to meet the vertical transition standard. So, yes, next slide, please. Our requested amendment is specific to that vertical transition standard. The standard currently, as we discussed, requires an uncovered flight of stairs that rise at least 3 feet. And we're requesting to amend the code to allow a rise of 18 inches, as noted here in the slide in red. And the next slide, Ronnie. So we do feel that the request supports development of homes that reflect the goals of the 2018 concept plan and the Kingston Terrace master plan. The vision and the goals of both plans include development of housing that appeals to a full spectrum of people, taking into account diverse incomes, ages, and needs. We also feel the amendment supports universal design principles, which is a core tenet of the concept plan. So a reduction of the height of stairs required up to the front porch will allow greater accessibility and visitability to the home. And the next slide. So here to better illustrate what we're talking about, we have a couple of pictures from the Edgewater neighborhood here in King City. On the left is an image of homes designed with steps that provide an 18-inch vertical transition from the sidewalk to the porch. The home on the right is designed with a flight of stairs that meets the current 3-foot code requirement. So as you can see that both frontages provide a clear transition between the public street and sidewalk in the front door. However, the home on the left with the 18-inch rise, it offers easier access for homeowners and guests with fewer steps and a more gentle rise. The shorter rise also allows homeowners the option to create an ADA compliant entrance. And we're asking that the city amend the transitional space design standard to provide developers the opportunity for home buyers greater choice in the entrance and the frontage design. So we also feel the requested amendment to the vertical transition design standard better supports context-sensitive design. And so to illustrate this point, we have 2 pictures of homes along Southwest Macbeth Drive. So the home pictured on the left is located on the north side of the street, and the picture on the right are homes located directly across the street on the south side. So the topography of this property, which is now the Edgewater neighborhood, required grading that resulted in the walls. and the steep stairs that you see today. So the requested code amendment will better account for existing topography that doesn't lend itself to a 3-foot rise, specifically the western portions of the Kingston Terrace district, which is relatively flat. So requiring a 3-foot vertical transition will artificially force topographic changes and changes to the grade that may impact walkability and bikeability in the neighborhood. So as a developer, New Home strives to build with the natural environment, and we don't want to manipulate the existing grade to create an artificial streetscape. And the next slide. So the requested amendment will also support development of neighborhoods in the Kingston Terrace district that contain a variety of architectural designs. The amendment will permit a mix of housing styles along a street similar to what you see in Edgewater. The amendment will support construction of the craftsman style homes that meet the horizontal transition standard with the wide porches, right next to more contemporary style homes with the smaller porches that require compliance with the vertical transition standard. So this variety of architecture creates a neighborhood that's not only easily accessible, but provides greater interest for pedestrians. And New Home Company is requesting the text amendment in order to build a neighborhood in Kingston Terrace District with the same emphasis on the neighborhood character and pedestrian access. And so these last two images show how a transition space with a 3-foot rise impacts the driveways and entrances into the garages. Here you can see that a 3-foot rise results in a driveway slope greater than 14%. And for ease of accessibility, driveway slopes should be no more than 8 to 10%. And the next slide. So in this rendering, you can see how a 3-foot rise impacts a rear-loaded home. So homes designed to meet the current code result in an access into the garage from the alley with a slope of almost 30%. Again, driveways and accesses into the rear garages should be no more than 8 to 10%. So amending the transitional space design standard to 18 inches will result in driveways and rear access to alley-loaded garages that are easier to maneuver and more accessible. And so that is the end of my presentation. Of course, we're happy to answer any questions, and we have our contact information here. Let me quickly answer a couple of questions. I know that there was a question about the setbacks, and this amendment to the code does not impact the setback requirements in the Kingston Terrace district. And in the Kingston Terrace district, there's a number of different neighborhood zones, and each zone has a different setback, but I believe most of them, the front setback is 10 feet. And the reason why we did talk to Mike and Max about asking for a variance for each of the lots. However, because of the topography, especially right now, we're starting to break ground in the town center zone. And because the area has been agriculture for so many years and farmed, it's relatively flat. And there's not a lot of grade to be made up. Now, in other neighborhoods, as development moves eastward or even southward towards the river, there will be grade that may require steps and walls similar to what I showed in Edgewater. But generally right now in the town center, and we have even in the town center, you also have the park blocks, and we're trying to make that as accessible as possible and working with the current land. So, but again, we're happy to ask or answer any questions.
any questions? Okay. I do. I was interested in what the reason for the 3-foot high, is so that when you're walking past, I mean, we have only 10 feet in front of these homes, okay? So that's like between you and me. And, that's so that when you walk by, you don't look directly into a window. When you walk by a window that's up higher, you look up and you see a ceiling. You don't see the people in it. They're not looking directly out at you. And since we want eyes on the street, we don't want people to have to close their shades all day, every day, because we don't want people looking into their home. That's the reason for the height change. I do understand, though, that creating hills for this would be kind of weird. Is there any way, without your floor at grade, your first floor, it doesn't need to be at grade, it can be 3 foot off the ground? I grew up in Chicago, okay? We have garden basements that have actually windows that look out, because in this particular way. And I always missed actually not looking into the windows. They do that in Turkey, not. Can you build differently? I know that the foundation is generally about maybe 18 inches off.
Is Pam Verdadero in the audience? Let me see if Pam can address this. So Pam Verdadero, she's the Vice President of Acquisitions and Development for the New Home Company. Mm-hmm. And let me see if I do have an answer, I think, but let me have Pam address it, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Pam, are you there?
Hi, Pam. We are not hearing you. Yeah, we're getting just little syllables.
Are you there, Pam?
Maybe try
okay.
calling you. In terms of what she's talking about in terms of the visual. So if you're just in the I don't have all the. I'm sure that the question is where the windows sit in relation to the street and the sidewalk, right?
Right. And it's this particular builder, I don't believe they build on a slab on grade, that there is a crawl space. Again, I believe it's. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you want to pull up the slides, Ronnie, yes. So this is actually the same architect, same similar style homes. So you can see that there is a grade difference between the sidewalk and there is that distance from the sidewalk, but it is.
Yeah, there's a slope that goes up, and because an 8% slope, which is handicap slope, would be 37.5 feet to get you up to 36 inches. So that's that's up there. Then half of that would be an 18 foot. And does anyone know how big the front front lawns are.
That would be the 10-foot setback.
Yeah, but are these 10 feet, or these are more than 10 feet, aren't they? Huh?
He hasn't measured his front yard.
I don't know what to get.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like there's maybe on the tall one,
Could possibly be 10
Yeah.
feet, yes.
yeah, the bottom would be, I think, looks like the bottom run would probably be between 6 and 8 feet up, and then rise is 36, so that you would end up with. Okay.
Oh, yes, you could.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that would be, it would be 8 foot, 8 in, 3 up, and that gives you 10 feet to the.
My name is Stacy Connery. I'm also with PCD representing the new, and I will try to speak louder.
Okay.
In response to your question of if they could alter something in the building to get it to be higher, we've had several discussions with New Home Company and with the architect, and what the impact of that would be is it would create additional steps between the garage into the home. And they do like to keep that to, like, I believe it's like 1 or 2 steps into the home, but it would add additional steps, which then affects, like, desirability for the people who are buying the home,
Oh, okay.
because it's additional steps to get into your home from the garage. So the intent is to keep that as low as possible.
That makes sense. I actually know somebody who lives in Beaverton who has these design standards in their home. And I was going to suggest, that the garage is lower than the home, the floor, the finished floor level. But yeah, I understand. We have to walk down those steps. They're a cool garage with really high ceiling.
Okay.
Vice Chair, do you want to call for a motion, or is there any further deliberation?
Okay, do we have any further comments?
I would like to say thank you for the explanation regarding the driveway slopes. That seems to be a good argument, in that very steep slopes going up into the garage, especially from the alleyways, does appear like that would be way too steep. Visually, it makes it harder to get the car in the garage. And that's a good, I think that's a reasonable reason for wanting to make this change.
Yeah, I just, yeah. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who has a comment in opposition? Anyone from the public in favor? Yes, sir. Would you please come to the podium, state your name, address?
Conway Row, 11820 Imperial Avenue.
Okay.
I couldn't help but notice the relationship between slope and safety in the wintertime. I fell and got a bad concussion last winter on less slope than we're talking about, even in favorable circumstances here. Also, somewhat in conflict with that, less slope is more permissive of casual entry or visitation, as it were.
Okay,
That's
thank you. Neutral? Okay. Let's see. Do commissioners have any more questions or comments? in terms of the driveway, I would be more inclined to give a variance, and I do understand the reasoning besides, we want to design, and you don't want to have to design to these standards and ask for a variance each time, because that costs money to design, and then you have to go back to the drawing board. But I think it does, I think there needs to be maybe a third set of requirements that would give you, with the 18-inch rise, the privacy that was intended in some sort of way. I personally have walked down streets where I've looked into people's houses or driven past, and it's very uncomfortable. And I'm one of those people that has my windows open all the time. But I realize that, yes, it's all very flat. If it were on a slope and you had your back alley loading, you would have a higher slope maybe in the back, and then you're not going into the garage at such a steep angle. From the front, the garage, yes, can be a little bit lower. And the reason I want to call for a variance is that, yes, we do have steeper slopes as we go down the hill. There are some developments that I've seen that I really like, where a duplex is entered from one story from above and one story from below, because the hill is that steep. But I don't think we have steep hills like that in any of our locations. So that's my, I want to say $72,000 student loan speaking. Not 2 cents. I sincerely believe that it would be causing the privacy of people to have a problem. And I would look for a third code condition. I don't think it's simple. I don't think it's minor, and I don't think it's just design. I think there's an intention there for privacy. Okay. Can I just follow up to that? Yep.
So Mac, my follow-up to that, to your concerns. If it was a variance, then how many times would they have to come to the planning commission for having to have it changed for every new part of the development that needed to have this option?
I believe it would be for every single home.
Every home.
So we did the fire station, even though it was one individual development project, they requested 5 variances and had to pay $1,000 because each variance requested $3,000. And they'd have to come to the planning commission for each of those. If my understanding of the code is correct, I'd have to go back and check. The type 3.
So I want to make sure I'm clear on this. That changing it from 3 feet to 18 inches minimum does not require it to be 18 inches minimum. And the individual houses, if the site is better served to create the privacy by being 3 feet, I'm going to guess new homes, which the experience I've seen so far is you've been good stewards of the responsibility you've been given, is you make it 3 feet. Also, you want to make money. It's more marketable to have someone who wants to buy it if it's better to be flat, to make it flat. So is my understanding correct on this? Okay.
Okay. At this time, I would ask for a motion to close or continue the public hearing.
Question then.
Yes.
Is this one of those, we have to continue to do it twice, or can we close?
No, because you're just making a recommendation.
Okay.
Okay.
You're gonna close,
Did we ask for folks online?
Public hearing.
Huh?
you're gonna close the public
Okay,
hearing.
thank you. Okay, at this time,
So what you're gonna do is another discussion.
okay.
And you're gonna recommend or not recommend, or recommend the conditions to the city council.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Was there anyone online? No, in terms of
Does Pam want to say anything?
public comment.
And have a rebuttal to the
Okay. Hi, Pam, go ahead.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, unfortunately I missed about the last 10 minutes of your conversation, so I'm not sure how our planner addressed the question, which was, kind of targeted at the aesthetics and what would be the main reason why we wouldn't see being able to comply to this. And it is really just following the natural topography of the community, just like the examples that were used from King City, or I should say Edgewater. You could have differentiation on the same street where you have the other side of the street is higher than the other, where you'd see both. But we just don't want it to be a requirement to have every home have a 3-foot minimum. That would be very costly to develop to achieve that aesthetic. And I don't think that was the intent of the code. I think that the code requirement was in error. Certainly, we want the homes to look different and have the elevations add character to the neighborhood, and certainly address folks that want to have 0 steps or very few steps to the front door. But again, I think the code was kind of written in error and would cause any developer a great deal of money to create that look. There's just not enough dirt to bring in. It would cost millions of dollars to achieve a look on every single home to do that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, Pam, this is Carol Bellows. I'm the vice chair today. My whole question was around the privacy. As you're walking by a home whose finished floor is close to grade, I was uncomfortable with looking straight into a window, someone's front windows.
I think you can see if you go through any other neighborhood, Edgewater included is a perfect example because it has very similar styled homes with alley loaded homes, which is primarily what this is addressing. And you'll see that there still is privacy. You've got, every home typically has window blinds, and those usually are dens or dining rooms. They're not bedrooms. Those are secondary rooms. And then the primary bedroom is usually on the back side of the home for privacy.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we have any more comments, questions, or? Go ahead.
I have a question, just, I've read through it all, and as I think back in my head, I go, so we're about to make a recommendation, make the change. In every other example, we've always made a recommendation, including the conditions. I don't recall any conditions. Are there? Have I missed some?
There is no recommended
Okay.
conditions for staff.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to
Generally,
make sure.
Usually we do.
Generally, conditions are
Right.
used as a means for
Right.
when they're blocking an application or something that you want, then you put
Yep.
in a condition, but it's very specific.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
There are no conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, before I would like to find out before we, okay, but first I would like to find out, and I guess this is questions for staff, what the different setbacks are in the different areas. Good, okay.
And I don't see any language in the variance code that says that you can apply it broadly. It's specific to property.
Okay, all right. All right. Okay.
So the Beach Bend neighborhood has a front yard setback to the porch varying between 5 and 15 feet. The central neighborhood varies between 6 and 15 feet. The town center, which is primarily what we're concerned with at the moment because that's the development that's being built, varies between 5 and 15 feet. Rural character neighborhood varies between 5 and 15. That's the front yard setback to the porch.
To the porch.
And the front yard setback to the building
Okay.
itself varies between 10 and 26 feet across the board.
Okay,
So there's
got it.
pretty wide variability there.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I got the 10 feet because of the building, the site plans that I've been reviewing for the homes that are currently beginning to go through the building permit process.
Uh-huh.
That's the 10.
I see. 4 feet, 6 feet. All righty. Okay, okay, any more questions? Okay, hearing none at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to close or continue the public hearing.
Should be closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I declare this public meeting closed for land use case number LU 2025-04. Did you hit the gavel? There, okay. All right. So, what is the pleasure of the planning commission? Do you wish to recommend approval to the city council?
Recommend approval with conditions or deny the application. Anyone have a motion?
Approval.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have,
Have a second? Second.
okay, do we have discussion?
Reasonable.
Uh-huh.
I am good in that the setbacks be quite wide. Setbacks to the house itself is 10 feet. I can't second it.
I second.
You seconded it?
I did second it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, let's vote on,
You wish to recommend the approval, the motion to approve this, this application?
Recommend to approve the code amendment 114-060-6.
Okay. All right. We are voting to approve, or not, recommend approval to City Council, application to amend 16.114.060 C-A, yeah, 6A.
Commissioner Gothier? Commissioner Blair? Approved. Commissioner Petrie?
Approved.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Approved?
And Vice Chair Bellows?
Approved.
Passes 5-0.
Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Doesn't say that I can take a motion to, adjourn?
No, not yet.
not yet, okay.
My script ended. I told Matt I haven't
Haven't done this since I was 12, when I was president of the 4-H meeting.
All right, well, we can thank our applicants. for
Yeah.
coming by.
Thank you.
For coming by. We do appreciate your patience.
It's gonna be a tight turnaround for notice requirements, so this probably won't get on the agenda until July.
Okay.
Thank you. And it looks like,
And there's a presentation that I prepared very briefly to give an update on the clean water services and the
okay, yes,
erosion down at your creek.
right, okay.
Frankenstein, Gary Mitchell, presentation that he gave before. And to give everyone a recap, I don't recall if we were all there at that meeting. Questions, and I'll give you guys an update. So, for those of us who aren't familiar,
Not to talk about today.
Deer Creek is in the bottom left corner of that image right there. So if you go down 131st and you go to the west, or if you go down to Fisher Road and at the roundabout go south, go down towards the river, eventually you'll end up at the community park. Deer Creek goes into the river from the community park. That looks good, right?
I can read.
And the red line in the middle of this image is the set course of Deer Creek as it goes south down Bull Mountain into the river. Ronnie, next slide. So again, this is just going into a little bit cleaner of an image showing sort of what the issue is. 20 years ago, when the developer built Edgewater, Clean Water Services, when we wanted to put it apart, Clean Water Services required that a wetland be put in place in what was at the time just a vegetated field below the park. And in the 20 years since, that field has since turned partially into a forest, partially into a wetland. And Deer Creek has been split through the development, kind of comes back to a confluence in that little wetland area circled in white, and then goes straight into the river. And it has begun to create a gully of head cut that is eroding at an exponentially growing rate every year, that potentially in the future will damage the wetlands, will create soil instability, also pollutes the river with soil. So it's really a situation that the city has identified needing to be fixed. Here's some images that Commissioner Mitchell went and got over the winter of this gully. These images don't exactly do it justice. So when you actually go down, I mean, on the left image, you can see an entire tree and its root buried, like its root system having been toppled down. And if you go to the very top of where the creek is going into the wetland, it looks like there's going to be an exact same situation where that is right now as well. Ronnie, continue down. Don't know if those videos work. I don't think so. All right. Here's a diagram that shows how the erosion has been affecting it year after year. This only goes back about 5 years, but there's some evidence that more than 5 years ago, it has been, like as I mentioned, growing exponentially. This is a statement from Dr. Roland French discussing the outfall into the rivers and why this is an issue, and also how many cubic yards of soil is being dumped into the river each year through this. Connie, continue. Another picture of it. You can kind of see some rock down there on the right. So it's, what we suspect is happening is that the water is getting into the wetland above the gully, saturating the soil, cutting down into the bedrock, and then sloughing it out from below, as well as above. And so you can imagine how that will just compound over time and get worse and worse. And then, right. Officially, the city does not maintain responsibility of the trail. We do not encourage people to go there, and it is not maintained by the city. As Commissioner Mitchell mentioned, if we were to encourage people to go into an area that we identify to be potentially hazardous, that leaves the city in a poor position. So I will be requesting from the council, I have an update slide. I think that's the last one. So this is steps that the city has taken since I first brought this to the attention of the city council last year, and the planning commission. So the city council passed resolution 2024-16 and directed city staff to seek funding for, among others, the King City Community Park Trail, which is considered part of the Tualatin River Trail. And so that's what I've done. So in winter 2025, the city staff and the planning commissioners, we actually had representatives from Clean Water Services come down, explain sort of how they do stormwater maintenance and when they identify issues, and give us a rundown on their regional approach. And then I applied for, I shouldn't say me, I had a lot of help. The city staff applied for the Metro Nature and Neighborhoods Grant, which is a grant program specifically designed to restore, revitalize, protect, and enhance natural areas identified within city boundaries, which in my mind, this forest area is a perfect example of that. And so I met with grant manager back in January to discuss our proposal before I did a pre-application. I went through the pre-application process, and then we submitted that grant application, I believe, in March. Moving on, so in spring 2025, just last week, myself, Commissioner Mitchell, two engineers from our engineering consultant team went down to the park and met with the volunteer advisory committee for that grant and the grant program manager, and gave them a tour and answered some questions. They had some great questions, great feedback. They did give the aura that they thought it was a really good project and worthy of their time. So I feel confident that they will recommend approval to the Metro Council. According to the grant website, that recommendation will be given at the beginning of June, and then the grant will be awarded by the Metro Council by the end of June. We already have a draft scope of work, which was included in the application. We already have fee estimates, which were obviously included in the application because we had to submit very precise funding and show exactly where the money would be going and what approach we would take for the project. And so I'm waiting to hear back from that, and if it gets denied, I'll continue to seek funding to hopefully shore it up. I've taken this project on as a top priority for my department, and so with that being said, does anyone have any questions?
Max, I'd like to thank you for following up on this. After a meeting last time, I look at the scope of work in Exhibit A that you submitted to everybody, and on the first page, you note that additionally, erosion control measures will be put in place and designated by a licensed engineer with permits from Department of State Lands and Army Corps of Engineers. And so this trail project will address and will have funds then to address the erosion that's going on. Also, before, I think it was in March, where we did a site visit and Commissioner Bellows attended. And we did a walkthrough with Clean Water Services. And at that time, after the walkthrough, Clean Water Services agreed to put together an action item list, which they did, and which you submitted, or which you sent out to all the commissioners. The concern I have with that action item list and with the project is the amount of time that it's going to take to get the project done and implemented. If you look, if you've had a chance to look at that, the planning is 3 months, prelim design stages are 6 to 12 months, final design 6 months, and then it says construction 1 to 2 years, so that totals out to maybe 4 years before any work will be done and completed. There's a concern I have about current safety problems, which I've raised. And those temporary bridges that are down there now, they're just planks that go across the streams. They're very unstable and they're hard to walk across. And the city is now aware of the safety concern and the problem, and I'm concerned about liability. And I'd like to find out if there's a way that we can propose interim fixes during this 4-year time span. I've got some thoughts about how to improve those walkways across the creek and the ravine that I'd like to pass out to the commissioners now, just to give them an idea of what things could be done in the interim.
Okay.
In the meantime, anybody else have any comments?
On a side note, in the future, if you guys are bringing materials, I would ask that you as well, so that I can put them on TV, so that members of the audience see them.
Okay.
Clear and on the record for the video.
This is very preliminary, and it's just for discussion purposes.
Yeah, when we were on the tour, we discussed actually a couple of possibilities to start mitigating. One of them was putting willows, sticking willows in, because willows easily root, and that could slow down the water and slow down the erosion. It was really quite a bit more than I thought it was. And there's a little bit of a question, is this going to be a feature that we want? People will visit it, people will use it, and so what do we want from it at that point? That was something that did come up, and
I haven't been down there. Do we even need to have these kinds of bridging at all? Or do we just somehow block off the area? Or is this really structural and necessary to get around down there to have this?
Yeah. The trail as it is currently composed goes over, one is the water goes very fast, especially in the winter time, and it's unavoidable, you have to cross it. And then the other one, the water goes slower, but it's deeper and wider. And so, and because it did a loop, it goes from where the power line corridor is, through the woods, and then ends up back at the field.
So it's part of our trail. If it's not part of our trail, can it be, this area be blocked off?
It could be blocked off. Blocking something off, though, unless it's really blocked off, just kind of encourages people to go back there anyway, and then they're harder to find.
No, but what I'm saying is if you block it off and it's signed that this is not, you know.
I'll block off the trail itself.
Well, this area that we're concerned about, because if you're put in those nice little bridge and do all that, you're just kind of encouraging an issue, and then we are, in essence, saying, okay, we put this here for you, and we're kind of accepting the risk.
Right. My concern for blocking the trail, at least on the side where the gully is that if you put like a 20-foot fence, what tends to happen is that people just walk around the fence and the trail just becomes a newly aligned. And what I suspect would happen is that most people would go left away from the gully directly into the wetlands, which is identified as locally significant. So you're directing people away from what's already an established trail to a untracked and trampled around wetlands, because it is a little drier.
Yeah, so the question then is something to research is liability issues for
Right.
doing anything of
I
what
think
you
the
do
only
and what
thing
you
at
don't
the
do.
time the city can really do is establish more signs directly on the trail that say, warning, dangerous or unsteady slope, just hazard signs. Just if I'm a family and I'm, with my kids and I take them out there I might see the signs at the park that say, you know, use at your own risk, not maintained, but then if I see another sign that actually indicates real danger, that might make me think twice. The problem with putting a bridge like this, Commissioner Mitchell, is that the city will still be required to go through all the permitting, even if it's a little small bridge that you can build in your backyard. You have to get clean water service permitting, you have to go through Army Corps of Engineers.
You have to go out like the rest of the people who have put improvements there at midnight and just kind of put down a plank. Yeah, and the kids that use it will get over, under, and around any fence there is, because they're exploring the creek.
I think there's a potential to put out, like an RFP for the rail post fence, maybe 4 or 5 feet away from the edge on either side, at those little clearing areas, signs that say, don't cross the fence, danger, as an interim safety solution. Like I mentioned, I had set up a meeting with the mayor, but she had scheduling conflicts, but I am going to be trying to take this to the council specifically, and you as the planning commission, who one of your primary jobs is legislative focus, could potentially direct me to author a resolution, and that I could bring to the city council, I think. Because what I would like to see done is get the city council to allocate some funds from our planning budget to implement this. And we set aside some money and make this like a project that we can actually, you know, put out an RFP. I don't think we would need permitting to build a fence as long as we're not touching the water. But I don't know for.
And you won't need permits for the signs.
And we don't need permits for the signs.
Yeah.
It'll be well under the water.
If the fence is within the, I want to say the easement on the river, the, riparian area, it may need EWS. Because you're not supposed to, do anything in that area, in the riparian zone.
Right. And that, I wouldn't put it in the wetland, but I would put it up on the embankment.
Right, that embankment, yeah.
Which I don't know, I mean, it's well within their 100-foot buffer for significant.
Oh, is it, okay?
ESL, I would have to
Okay,
talk to.
yeah, okay.
I don't know, because it's not touching the water, so.
Yeah.
It's actually trying to get people to avoid the water, so.
So your memo would basically say the planning commission is concerned about the safety of this drop-off, and let's allocate funds for a safety barrier.
Yeah, and I think I need to
be reviewed.
I need to, what I would probably do with that in mind, since resolutions are legislated from the council, is write a memo, have it approved by the planning commission, and then take that to the city council. And
Okay.
say, hey, this is where we're at, and then request them to direct me to, direct Mike to direct me.
Okay. Do we need to
Oh.
vote on this?
Just a
More comments?
quick,
Okay, good.
quick comment. I really like the idea of split rail fence with sign. You see it at Cook Park, and you see everybody on the trails, and nobody crosses the split rail fence with sign. You see it at the coast all the time with all the cliffs, and people go up to it and cross it. And as someone, and I'll admit, that doesn't believe a sign actually applies to me if it doesn't specifically have my name on it. Just the sign at the beginning of the trail, I know you didn't really mean me, you know, when you were warning me there. But a split rail fence that says stay back. I've also raised kids. I keep them back of the fence, and I think that's an excellent interim step.
I don't think it
I
would,
support it.
I don't think it would cost too much to put out, like I mentioned, an RFP and contractors to come in and do a bid, and if they can fix it, come up with a plan.
Assuming we can put it there at all.
assuming we can put it there at all. And that'll
Okay,
be a question for-
Do we need a vote, a motion, or anything on this, or do we
I
just
don't
say,
think so.
go for it?
It's kind of
I do have a follow-up on, what's been said, and that is that during the winter season and during high flow events, walking across this narrow plank that's there, and I think you all recall the video that I showed of the water going over the fall, how much water is going across there. This plank that's there now is a 10-inch wide, approximately 8-foot long plank. And you have to cross that torrent of water when you go through that trail. If we don't do something really bad could happen. If somebody falls, they decide to cross during one of those high flow events, they would end up flowing down through that ravine, maybe getting caught in the trees, or, it could be a very disastrous event.
How deep does it get when it's flowing that?
How
How deep? When it's flowing, how?
It's not necessarily it's probably, 2 feet deep there where it crosses,
Okay,
but it's the flow rate,
right, yeah.
not the depth.
Uh-huh.
You couldn't stand up in it.
And you're at the top of the waterfall.
Yeah, and
Well, and the waterfall though is not, it's quite a ways down, isn't it?
the waterfall, from where this plank is
Uh-huh.
to the edge of the waterfall is approximately 12 to 18 feet.
Yeah.
So from the current head cut
Uh-huh.
back to the wetlands is maybe 18 to 20 feet. So I'm guessing maybe 3 years with the progression of the head cut.
Yeah, right.
It's going to continue to go back. And at that point, you wouldn't be able to cross there because when the head cut gets where this plank is,
Mhm.
it's already much wider.
Yeah. So with the time it's going to take to follow Clean Water's plan, it's just going to keep getting more and more dangerous.
Yes, and that's why I'm wondering if there's an interim fix that we can work out with Clean Water Services. One of the fixes that they talked about was putting large rock in to fix this situation.
Yeah.
And the rock would break the falls and it would be staggered down. Is there a way that we can get an emergency permitted release to go in and, like, I think with the Clean Water Act and with the Corps of Engineers, there might be a way to get some rock put in the interim before this whole thing can get fixed. And that would slow down the erosion. Now, I don't know what the volume of rock it would take or what it would take to get it back there, but I'd like to see if that's something that we can get done, because 4 years is a long way to wait.
Right.
Yeah.
Our city engineer in his schedule estimated 3 years, which isn't much better, but I'm certainly looking at
Uh-huh.
some sort of.
Now, there was a huge logistical problem because there's trees in the way of getting there.
It would still be very expensive to put in boulders.
Uh-huh.
One alternative interim solution that Clean Water Services mentioned was installing long iron rods, like rebar, to the soil. That would slow down the soil, the water that's infiltrating in, and disperse it a little bit to slow the velocity. They reach out and ask about that. That I can't imagine would be.
We can commission art, a rebar art.
But again, there would be permitting involved with DSL and stuff.
I think it would be cool. I'm a landscape architect, hey.
There you go.
Okay, so does anyone have anything else? I
Well-
will draft up a memo, and then at our next meeting, not at our next workshop, I will present it to you, and you can give me revisions and redline it, and then we can.
Yeah, I think we've got some time in the dry season. Right now, I was down there, just today, and this photo was taken today, there's no water flowing over it. There's water in the pool below. And it's not until the rainy season when you get those downpours. So we've got some time to talk about this more, because I'm still concerned about if that plank is left and we know it's there, then we have I think we could have a liability.
I mean, our official position is we do not encourage people to go there, and we do not sanction this plank being there. It got swept away, and someone brought it back.
Okay.
Yeah. But
They're kids.
And even after the plank got swept away, we went there with Clean Water. No, when we went there with the Metro. No, it was Clean Water Service. They had like taken sticks, and there was a pile of sticks crossing where the plank was. So it's not like it's stopping people. I think if there's no plank, people are still going to go down there. I mean, I can go down and remove the plank if you want.
No, the person who made it still lives here.
They're gonna.
it's those steps that lead down to,
I found my canoe put in.
Would the city take out a structure like this if it was put in?
Like the one in your design? Yeah, and like I said, we would still have to go through all the permitting if I was.
Well, if it just appeared there, I'm good at midnight.
Yeah. If the city does it, then the city's responsible for what happens there, so that's better to maybe just leave it the way.
When I talked to the engineer about, doing the fencing and stuff, I'll bring up your design.
Okay.
Again, like I said, I'm worried that if we put an actual structure,
That's it.
that
Then we're
we're
responsible.
encouraging people.
Yeah. Did he put it in? City liability? No.
Mhm.
Better to have it be, midnight liability.
Night Rangers.
Okay, so for the sake of brevity, because Ronnie's really sick and dying over there.
oh no, okay.
Commissioner, we're scheduling a workshop for June.
Okay.
I need some time to do some council prep work, so I request that we don't meet again until the end of June, if that's okay with everyone. This would be June 25th
Okay.
for a workshop to discuss, a potential amendment to the King City Development Code and sort of our strategy going forward after now we've having done a number of development proposal applications, and we kind of see how it's unfolding, so we can bring up certain elements of the code that we think might need tweaking, which, this staff report that I had, this specific one is a perfect example of how that could be useful to talk about. Commissioner Blair specifically wanted to add to the agenda, his memo that has been distributed to you all.
Oh, that's what this is.
I'm good because you covered the basics. I just wanted to make sure that we did have a workshop scheduled in the future, that it covered the things that we talked about.
And if you can send that to me, my email,
Yeah.
I'll do my best to get informed on all of your questions and.
Right, and one suggestion I would have for it is, as we're talking about, the affordable housing section, at the last meeting, someone, it might have been you, I'm not sure, mentioned the Tigard is doing affordable housing. They're bigger, they've done more than us. We should, if they have experience that could help us out, I think it'd be good to invite a Tigard person. Also, the pocket parks, I looked at the master plan, and there is no location specified for pocket parks,
Okay.
which means every single developer can do what Kensington Square does and said, you can't require me to put a pocket park.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right, and that runs all the way through. And I believe they also have experience with pocket parks, including when they did designate where to put it, that became the place developers didn't develop.
Right, yeah.
You know, you got
it.
You got
There's
your,
other parks in the concept design, so I have to look back again. I thought we had.
there's community parks, there's linear parks.
So can we discuss this at the workshop?
Yeah.
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
If that's what the workshop's open for, and we got it scheduled, so I'm good.
Is it scheduled for 6 or if it's in the evening or
I'm flexible with whatever.
9:30 in the morning?
council wants.
Is there any more consideration for going to 9?
I think that would be, I mean, for a workshop, I don't see an issue with it. It's open to the public. I think if we were to discuss, alternating or changing the time of the actual meetings, then the chair should be present for that. But if you want to schedule a workshop for 9:30 on June 25th, that would be nice.
I would like that very much myself. Anyone have a problem with it? 9:30 a.m.?
9:30 a.m. on June 25th. And if no one has anything else, Vice Chair Bellows, I think we could
Okay.
probably adjourn.
All right. Motion to adjourn. Second.
Second.
I'll say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned at 7:26.
7:26. Good.
Thank you, members of the public, for coming to our.
Thank you.
Planning meeting. We actually had